Mr. Sami Abu Shehadeh, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Doha Forum.
Thank you for hosting me in this interview.
We've seen a lot of discussions about Israeli aggression in Gaza, but what we haven't seen in some of these media narratives is the discussion of disproportionate use of force and contravention of international law. How do you feel that this is a topic that has not been appropriately addressed either by detractors or in the media?
I think the whole and most of the media coverage of what's happening nowadays in Gaza, in my point of view, to say, not to use very hard words, it's really racist, to be honest. And the way you see mainly Western media, the way they are dealing with Israeli victims of the war and Palestinian victims of the war. When they are covering the killing of Israeli children, and then the way they cover Palestinian children, all this discussion is a very dangerous and racist discussion or terminology that they use. Like exactly what happened yesterday was Blinken, when they were asking him if Israel is doing war crimes in Gaza. Not one of the UN important figures. So he said he is not a lawyer, and this got to do with the international law. So he's not an expert and he cannot tell his views. This should be done in the ICC. Then after a few questions, they're asking him if Hamas is committing war crimes. And then he was very clear about that and said, yes, Hamas is committing. And this is people of the UN. Now, when you think about the discourse used by the Americans or the discourse used by the Israelis, it's pointing us a very dark picture of dark racist ages when there were people who's considered value more and people who considered value less. So you see a very serious problematic coverage of what's happening on.
How can you, as a politician in Israel, how can you help people understand how can you counter those Western media narratives? And do you also think that we're at a point now with the rise of social media and alternate voices like Al Jazeera, Middle East Eye, where people are understanding where this double standard is quite apparent to people? I think it's increasingly difficult to pull the wool over people's eyes because they have access to more tools now than they had in the past. And the Western media narrative is not able perhaps to dominate as much as it used to. What do you think?
First of all, I totally agree with you that the social media, and there are few very important channels like the Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera in Arabic and in English, other languages, Television Al Arabi, they are really doing very important work. At least they are respecting their profession. And this is something important, which is not happening in other media, like the Israeli media or other Western media. The journalists that are trying to bring the truth are respecting their profession, and it still gives hope to the public, to the majority, Palestinians and others, that there are still those who do care about the truth. In this war, our interest as Palestinians is that the world will know the truth. And we don't want to spread any lies. We want just people to see what's happening. Those who are committing war crimes like the Israelis, they have an interest in lying because they know what they are doing. They know that they are criminals. They know that they are committing war crimes, and they want to hide the truth. This is why you see that the Palestinian narrative of what's happening is much closer to the truth because we have an interest that the people would know the truth. I think that the killing of tens of journalists is a very important part of this of the story which is happening. Those who are killing the journalists have the interest to cover the truth. They don't want the people to know. Those who are doing all this crazy massacres against children, women, elderly population, civil population, all of them, including anyone. They have an interest to lie. But we were saved, in my point of view, by the way, by the serious media people who respects their profession. And this is why we are seeing also this unprecedented support for the Palestinian issue all over the world. You see millions of people marching and demonstrating for peace and justice for everyone.
We've seen Israel's success in silencing members of the media, whether it's through the killing of journalists, such as even prior to when the war started, such as Shireen Abu Akleh, and we see censorship on the rise today of Israel's own citizens, even Jewish citizens. How does it feel to be in Israel today, and is the level of censorship, the level of free speech, has it been profoundly affected?
First of all, there is no freedom of expression, and since the 7th of October, there is nothing that got to do with freedom of expression in the Israeli state. All of the rational human voices are being prevented, whether they are Palestinians, and we are 20% of the population in Israel, or whether they are Jewish peace activists. People are threatened. Part of the activists, Palestinians and Israelis, they are afraid to go out of their homes. There are threats on their lives all the time. We were prevented from having any political activity against the war. We started by planning a march that was prevented by the Israeli police. Then we wanted to have a demonstration, they also prevented us. Then we said we want to have a cultural discussion on people who are against bloodshed and against the war. Arabs and Jews, by the way, together in one hall in the city of Haifa. They also prevented this, and they threatened the owner of the hall that they are going to close the hall. Then we tried to have a small protest in the city of Nazareth. According to the Israeli law, such kind of protest does not need a license at all, because it's less than 50 people, no loudspeakers, no political speeches. We all the Arab-Palestinian leadership wanted to carry one sign written on it, "Stop the war," in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. This was oppressed also by the Israeli police. We should remind everyone that the minister in Israel who got to do with the national security and the police forces is the terrorist Itamar Ben-Gvir. And I'm using the word terrorist, not my political view. This minister was charged of terrorist crimes according to the Israeli law. And imagine any other state in the world where the minister of security or internal security is a terrorist. So this terrorist has terrorized all of the voices that want to talk about peace, that want to carry a rational human solution and want to talk against the war. The Palestinians in Israel are paying also a very high price in this war. Hundreds of our students at the Israeli University were expelled from the universities without hearing. This contradicts the laws of the Israeli universities. Doctors working in Israeli hospitals were expelled because they were writing on the social media human sentences. And imagine you would be expelled from your work as a doctor in a hospital because you wrote on your social media that also in Gaza there are women and children. Teachers are being expelled from the education system. Workers are being expelled not for writing anything because they are Arab Palestinians. They did not do anything. Israel is becoming a very extreme fascist and racist society. The problem is that you are having this racist approach not just from Netanyahu, who is well known as an extreme right-wing fascist, or Itamar Ben-Gvir and his other Minister of Finance, Bezalel Smotrich, that were accused of terrorism according to the Israeli law. It's by big parts of the Israeli Jewish society that are attacking and getting revenge from any Arab Palestinian.
But the U.S. has called Israel the only democracy in the Middle East. This is not reflective of democratic behavior. Do you think that if people had better understanding of what was going on the ground, that that would erode support for Israel either in the West, in Europe, or in the North America?
I think, first of all, we should be very clear about the U.S. The U.S. have decided to take sides in this war, and they took the side of the part which is doing all these war crimes for 2 months, more than 2 months. Not just by supporting Israel in diplomacy and in their foreign relations and in the UN with their veto and weapons and money. The important officials, the important statesmen of the US sat in a lot of the meetings of the Israeli war cabinet. They are part of these war crimes. This is why the United States must also lie. They want to hide the crimes of Israel. This is why they are defending, because they are sitting on the same table where these decisions of killing children and women are being taken. The United States is part of this decision, so they want also to defend their statesmen who are participating in this war crime against the Palestinian people. I think it's not that they are killing Palestinian children and women. By this one-sided approach, by this blind support of the Israeli war crimes, the United States is killing the truth and killing human morality. Because this double standards is pushing a lot of the new generations to totally lose hope in the discourse of democracy and human rights. When they are talking about shared values with Israel, you think about what do they mean by these shared values? Israel is an occupation state, occupying millions of Palestinians, putting 2.3 million people under siege, discriminating against 20% of its own citizens. We, the Arab-Palestinian citizens in Israel, we are being discriminated in all fields of life. Anything you check, any comparison you do between our life standards and the Jewish, and you see the huge gaps. So when they are talking about the only democracy, it clearly means that they have nothing to do of understanding what is democracy. Because without justice and equality, there can be no democracy.
How is political support for the Netanyahu government in a post-war scenario, how has it been eroded by this endless campaign? And what do you see for the future of Arab Israelis in the political government in Israel?
First of all, I think it's because the war is still ongoing, and we are not sure if it's going to develop more, and the northern front will also be opened. It's really hard to predict the future. But what we can be sure about is that this fascist Netanyahu has probably finished his political career. I think in the next elections, Netanyahu will lose. Not because the Israeli society and other political parties became more human, more democratic, or more open-minded, but because from their point of view, the man of security, he used to call himself, did not bring security. And it's something that everybody should be talking about. Contrary to its main reason of being a state, the Israeli state all the time claimed that it was built in order to have a safe place for the Jews all over the world. After 75 years of an historical experience for this state, we are seeing that not just they are endangering the lives of Jews inside the state, they are also endangering the lives all over the world. Their racist policies and their wrong policy making for decades has been bringing more anti-Semitism and more hatred towards the Jewish population. So Israel is endangering the Jewish population inside the state of Israel and outside the state of Israel. Now, the new government, till now, unfortunately, it's not that I'm saying it and really don't like the fact that I'm going to say. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the Zionist parties carrying a different political agenda what Netanyahu has been leading in the last 2 decades in Israel. till now, we are not seeing anyone presenting a different political agenda. Regarding the Arab Palestinians who live in the Israeli state, well, we have to be honest, with the current racist attack and incitement against us, it's becoming very dangerous to be living as an Arab Palestinian citizen of the State of Israel. Maybe part of the world did not notice when this fascist Netanyahu declared war. He declared the war on 4 different fronts: on Gaza, on the West Bank, in the northern front, which he means Lebanon, and he said that the 4th front is the internal front. Whom did he mean by the internal front? He meant us. Now imagine you are living in a state where the prime minister is such a powerful political character, and he declares war on you. It means he's seeing you as an enemy. And he has terrorists in his government, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and they are inciting against us all the time. So it looks that we are going for a very hard future also for the Palestinian citizens of the State of Israel.
Do you have any hope that in a post-conflict environment this could serve to re-energize any peace talks or the peace process that has been dormant for a long time?
I'm sure it's going to reopen very serious discussion within the Israeli society regarding the future. Because now they have seen the results. They have seen the results of the apartheid regime they have been running on the Palestinians for decades. They have been seeing the results of oppression, of occupation, of racism. And they are seeing that it's dangerous for everyone. You know, this psyche of Jewish supremacy, racism, occupation, or all these circles of violence and revenge are not serving anyone. They are just bringing destruction for everyone. And also the Israeli society is paying a very high price for this. You know, imagine now everybody is talking about the economic effects of this violence. You know, imagine if all these tens of billions of dollars were invested in building and not in destroying. What will be the results? So I think it can open a very good discussion. But in order to take this discussion into a better future for all, by the way, we are struggling, my party, the National Democratic Assembly, our main political agenda is to make Israel a normal democracy that deals equally with all the citizens. Our democratic project is here to serve Israelis and Palestinians alike. We are struggling against racism, and we have nothing against the Jews as Jewish people. We have, of course, political discussion with Zionist policies of Zionism, but we are struggling to build a better future for everyone, Palestinians and Israelis. And in order to get there, we must build political regime, democratic political regime, which is based on the values of human rights and justice and equality for all, Israelis and Palestinians. There is no way out from the Palestinian question and from these circles of violence and revenge militarily. The only way out is to sit on the table, have a normal dialogue, and try to get to a solution which is better for everyone, Israelis and Palestinians.
Mr. Sami Abu Shehadeh, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.